Hey everybody, what is going on? So let's figure out how to do your webinar related emails in System.io. Little tricky when you're doing webinar related emails in System.io. It's just a couple little things that you want to kind of keep in mind. So once we're done with this video, you're going to have all of the kind of little small tips that you're going to need to know when you're going and setting up your webinar related emails. So let's jump over into System.io and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if we look at our funnels and we check out the funnels, what you're going to find if you go to try and create a campaign that's related to your webinar, you're not going to be able to pull in the webinar substitution variables. The only way to pull in the webinar substitution variables is if you create the emails from the actual funnel. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. We click into our funnel, and this is a webinar funnel. We are using the System.io webinar plan. Again, that's $47 a month if you're paying monthly. It's $33 a month if you're paying yearly. And so this plan allows you to do a lot more stuff. You can have more tags. You can have 100 rules, which is great. You know, you're not going to ever run out of rules. But that's just one of the things you got to keep in mind if you're watching along to be able to actually do what I'm doing here. You do need the webinar plan for System.io. Otherwise, they've got an extremely awesome free plan that is what I use as a general rule for most of my stuff. But in this case, we're on the webinar plan and we have a webinar funnel. Right up in here is the option for emails. And if you go in here and you click on emails, and if we go in here and just click on, let's just click on this one and we'll do an edit email. You'll notice here, this is a substitute variable. And what this is doing is this is pulling in the link for that subscriber's a login for their particular webinar that they're going to watch. All right. And so this substitution variable link is not going to be available on the other side. And if you try and copy this and pull this over to the campaign section or to the normal email section, it's not going to work. You have to set this all up within the actual funnel list for your webinar funnel. But once you do that, you're good to go. So here's one of the other things to kind of keep in mind. Unfortunately, System doesn't have something that allows you to kick an email out to somebody when they've successfully subscribed for an email. You would think that you would subscribe to watch a webinar and then it would immediately click an option off to email your user to say, hey, Sean, you've successfully registered for the webinar. Here's the link for the webinar. This is when the webinar is going to start, whatever else. We hope that you find it helpful, et cetera, right? System doesn't have anything like that. So unfortunately, what you have to do is there is a way of setting up a rule. And in there, we can go and set up a rule that says, hey, when somebody does register for a webinar, let's tag them and say, hey, they're a lead, right? And at the same time, let's go ahead and send them off a quick email that says, hey, you've successfully registered. And in that email, we would need to put something in there like, hey, you've successfully registered. Please look for an additional email that we'll send to you a minute before the email starts or 5 minutes. I do a minute. That way it'll capture everybody. If you try and do it like 15 minutes before the start and your webinars are starting every 15 minutes, they might not fire off that email properly. So I set it to 1 minute. And I would just, again, create an email that says, you've successfully registered. Please watch for another email that should be arriving that's going to have your link for the webinar and thanks or whatever else, right? So that's one of the little caveats with this. There's some quirks to any software that we use, but for the most part, even with systems quirks, it's pretty awesome. So let's go out of this, and that's an email that I've got set that's going to deliver. That's going to just say, hey, here's the information, your login information for webinar. Now, they're going to also have a thank you page, and that thank you page automatically goes into the webinar when it's time for the webinar to be fired off. But this is a way of what happens if they go away from that thank you page, right? We need to make sure that if they navigate away from that thank you page, that they can still get to it. And so that's why I've got this email going out a minute before it starts. So what we want to do though is we need to set up an automation rule to send them, hey, an email that says, hey, you've successfully registered for the webinar. And so we go up to our rules, and in here we're going to click on create. And here the trigger is, we're going to click on the plus sign to add a trigger. And what we're going to do is go down here to register to a webinar. And we're going to click on the funnel that we've already created. And we'll click on the webinar that was created. Okay. Now that we've got the trigger, we're going to go over here to the action. And you can have multiple actions in a rule, right? So the very first thing I want to do is I want to add a tag. So they're now a lead, and I've got a webinar lead tag. So I'm going to click on the tag, and I'm going to do, there's our leads. And then I'm going to do another one. Okay. And here we're going to send off an email immediately. Choose an email. And we can send this over. But if we go into it and we edit it, it's not going to be one that is going to have the necessary tag. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. This is a tag that I went and popped in from the other side, and it doesn't work. Okay, so what you want to do is you go in here, and I like to put in right here, this is a substitute variable. I like to put the substitute variable for their name into the subject. So when it arrives at their email box, it's going to be, Joe, here's the information for your webinar, your life-changing webinar. How about this? You are registered for your webinar. Okay. We'll put something here. Watch for another email with your login info. So then we just go in there. We say, hey, first name. Again, it's going to pull in the first name substitute variable, right? Thank you for registering. You're hosted by this amazing person you will ever meet. Here's your webinar information. Here I'm going to change this to, how about this? You will be receiving one more email approximately 1 minute. Let's do this. Before the start of the webinar, that will have the login link in case you need it. Note, the thank you page does have, or does forward to the webinar when it starts, if you still have the thank you page opened. And there we go. Okay. And that's pretty much good to go. And then we just scroll all the way down, we click on save. Okay. So now what's going to happen when somebody goes to the webinar and they click on register and they pick a time, once they pick that time and they hit submit, they're going to get a thank you page, but they're also going to get this email and say, hey, you are now registered, and they'll get this email. And again, because we can't include the link for the actual webinar in this particular email at this place in system.io, that's where we have to be able to send them that other email that's going to have the link. And that's how that works. So hopefully this kind of clears up some things if you're trying to figure out, hey, how do I send up follow-up emails for people who have registered for the webinar? I'm not seeing how to do that in some of the automations and rules. Now you'll know. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is now that you do have the funnels option, if you happen to need to save some rules, again, you've got 100 of them, so I don't think it'll be a big deal. But you can have multiple emails going in the funnel, and you can say, hey, send these at certain times. So you could literally just do a whole series of follow-up emails right from the actual funnel if you wanted to. If you like this video and you want to watch more videos like this, we have a whole system.io playlist, And that's it for today. Thanks for watching, everybody.